welcome to our daily news program coming to you from Canal Algérie. To the headlines. New guidelines issued to the governors or walis for a better supply of markets during Ramadan during the meeting held with the Interior Minister. Crippled with debts, the Moroccans are faced with the highest rate of suicide and inflation according to a recent investigation. And the national football team keep preparing for the double clash with Niger as part of the African Cup of Nations qualifiers. Good evening and welcome back. First up now news, and as per the decisions taken during the last Council of Ministers relating to the preparations for the month of Ramadan, and during which the President of the Republic ordered the government to be more strict in the organization of the control and supply operations in order to avoid disturbances and speculation. The Prime Minister Imam Abdurrahman chaired at the Government Palace a coordination meeting with the governors or walis in the presence of the Interior Minister via video conference. The meeting tackled the measures to be taken for Ramadan and the monitoring of development projects and all files that concern the daily life of the citizens. Regarding the blessed month of Ramadan, guidelines were given to ensure the continuous supply of foodstuffs and to utter against speculation and the attempts to create tension in the markets in addition to regulating them. The coordination meeting also addressed issues of local investment or the need to continue accompanying project leaders. Other topics such as the agricultural census and the preparation for the summer season were also addressed. In other news, the national airlines company Air Algérie announced a 50% discount on all flights to Algeria. Applicable from Tuesday, this discount will last until the 24th of April, and this for all flights scheduled until the May the 10th. Same thing for Algérie Ferry, which also announced a 50% discount on all trips coming to Algeria for the benefit of travelers during the month of Ramadan and the days of Eid al-Fitr feast starting from Tuesday at midnight. The Information Directorate of the Presidency extended its heartfelt condolences to the family of the late university professor and journalist Abdelali Rzagi, who passed away on Tuesday. May Allah Almighty accept him in His vast paradise. In another context, a meeting gathering the hydrocarbons national companies of the member countries of the African Petroleum Products Organization was held on Tuesday here in Algiers to face up the sector's challenges within an inter-African approach. Najah Dayar has the details.
The Sonatrach Group works to develop collaboration with African hydrocarbon companies to create investment opportunities in the sector through capacities and funding from the countries of the African continent. The member countries of the African Petroleum Producers Organization have affirmed that several hydrocarbon companies from African countries are increasingly mastering the technologies, including Sonatrach, which should allow to raise inter-African collaboration in this field. We are very grateful for the help and support of Sonatrach to African hydrocarbon companies. Sonatrach has a major role in the APPO, and we were working in collaboration to concretize the energy transition thanks to modern technologies that are mastered by the African companies such as Sonatrach. Also thanks to the inter-African collaboration that allowed to achieve important progress. Sonatrach maintains solid relations based on complementary and common interest with several foreign partners. The company also benefits from the world reference expertise. Sonatrach will spare no effort to share its experiences in technology and on the development processes of oil and gas production with the hydrocarbon companies of the African continent in order to help improve their performance and also to find common investment opportunities and to develop the petroleum and gas industry in Africa. The APPO Secretary General recalled the establishment of a bank dedicated to find African financing to the benefit of the continental energy projects. Africa Energy Banks has a capital of $5 billion, jointly financed by Afrexim Bank and the APPO.
And a debate devoted to Karim Belkhasem, one of the pillars of the Algerian Revolution, was held as part of the festivities marking the celebration of March 19th. The heroic deeds of this distinguished martyr were highlighted to pay tribute to his huge contribution during the Liberation War. Ines Kalou with the details.
Algérie veut accéder à la vie internationale sans complexe, avec le désir sincère de coopérer avec tous les peuples.
His name embodies the astounding revolutionary epic, the genius of a founding generation of a sovereign state, a liberating hero whose voice that first resounded to bring the voice of Algeria before the international press on the eve of the Evian negotiations.
Karim Belkhasem
is a major actor in recent contemporary history, whether before the War of National Liberation, during the war, or after independence. He was a member of the Execution and Coordination Committee 1 and 2, Deputy Minister of the Provisional Government of the Algerian Republic, Minister of the Armed Forces, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior, and also a signatory of the Evian Accords.
The essential role of Karim Belkhasem in organizing the revolution, in particular, was the core of the meeting of the Centenary Belkhasem Committee, assigned to him in partnership with the Paris Academy of Geopolitics.
Karim Belkhasem, comme vous le savez,
Karim Belkhasem, as you know, is a great revolutionary. He was one of the military and political leaders who never stopped thinking about Algeria in its entirety.
De penser à l'Algérie dans toute sa globalité.
He was an outstanding mastermind and foiled all the colonial plans, starting with the famous Bluebird operation organized by the French Secret Service, meant to divide the Algerians from the beginning of the armed struggle, as testified by the historian Omar Hamouri.
Karim Belkhasem a été condamné à plusieurs reprises.
Karim Belkhasem was condemned several times following the attacks committed on some Algerians collaborating with the French administration. Karim Belkhasem didn't want to start by beating the Europeans, but to work on educating the Algerians, not to help French administration, because he believed that if we cut the French administration from the Algerians, they would manage the operation better.
Il allait mieux gérer les opérations sur le terrain.
This year, we celebrate the centenary of Karim Belkhasem, born on December 15, 1922. The Centenary Committee of Karim Belkhasem announces a series of cultural and academic events dedicated to him throughout the year, both in France and Algeria.
And demonstrations are still carried out across the French territories following the adoption of the new retirement project reform. The French citizens expressed their anger and refusal of this decision. New developments are in the offing as the French President Emmanuel Macron is expected to bring clarifications during a live debate on Wednesday. More details with Melissa Kabash.
After 2 months of consultation and an intense mobilization from trade unions against the new retirement reform, the French Assembly rejected no-confidence votes, leading to the final adoption by Parliament to the project providing for the legal retirement age from 62 to 64 years old. New demonstrations kicked off, marked with great tension with the legal forces. Paris's town hall decided to establish a crisis unit following the fifth demonstration against this reform. Since January 19th, the reform project was clearly rejected by the French people, who expressed their anger following this decision, qualifying it as brutal and unfair. Thousands marched for 8 times in several cities, expressing their refusal. Another mobilization day is scheduled by trade unions on Thursday. As for refineries, a number of them are blocked, but the government evacuated the oil terminal of Donge. In France, nearly 8% of gas stations are short of both gas and oil. President Emmanuel Macron will express himself on Wednesday and answer the journalists' questions during a live interview. According to some sources, the French president isn't willing to dissolve the parliament, nor call for a referendum related to retirement.
To Caracas now, where the Sahrawi President and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, met on Monday with the head of the Venezuela-Africa Parliamentary Friendship Group, Jesus Suarez Churio, as part of his state visit to Venezuela. And Algeria's permanent representative at the United Nations in Vienna denounced the destabilization strategy used by Morocco against Algeria and other countries in the region. Morocco uses drug trafficking with dangerous repercussions on the populations. The diplomat expressed his concern when it comes to international peace and security and calls for a strong action to address the increase in supply and demand as well as illicit trafficking of substances placed under international control. To Morocco now, where the suicide toll has reached its peak. The economic and social crisis, notably the high cost of living, has driven the Moroccans unable to pay their debts to commit this heinous act. Story by Ines Kello.
Titled Inflation in Morocco, people commit suicide because they can no longer pay their debts. The French newspaper Libération devoted a report to the unprecedented economic and social crisis in Morocco, the result of extremely high inflation and skyrocketing price hikes that have driven some people unable to pay their debts to commit suicide, at a time when experts say that Moroccans are paying the price of decades of ill policy choices. The French daily relied on recent surveys which shows that the well-being of the Moroccan population has clearly decreased, falling below the levels observed during the most difficult months of the COVID-19 pandemic, noting that nearly one Moroccan on two now considers himself poor, and that the combined effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, rising prices, the crisis in Ukraine, and many years of drought have had devastating effects on the population, particularly the least well-off households. According to a study conducted by the High Commission for Planning, Moroccan institution in charge of statistics, no less than 3.2 million additional people have fallen into poverty or vulnerability in Morocco, with the poorest households reaching an alarming peak of 8.3% by the end of 2022, the highest level in over 30 years. In addition, Morocco experienced the worst drought in 4 decades in 2022, while almost half of economic slowdown in 2022 is attributed to the fall in agricultural production, particularly cereals, citrus and olives. According to the World Bank, more than 200,000 people have lost their jobs in rural areas where the poorest households live. An explosive situation has been strongly criticized by opposition parties, trade unions and associations, which have staged rallies in several major cities in the kingdom to denounce the government's actions.
Back to local news, the national football team continue their preparations for the double clash with Niger as part of the African Cup of Nations qualifiers on March 23rd and 27th. The squad of Jamal Belmadi are determined to win the first leg game to boost the morale and secure better conditions for the away match. Let's wish all the best for our national team. And with that, our today's news edition comes to an end. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.